This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia Friday, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes here in a very windy and cold Salt Lake City, and I shouldn't be complaining because judging from some of the people in the chat room tonight, you have much more exciting weather conditions than I do, but I hope you are all faring well, and I look forward every week to getting into chat and to seeing you here and to seeing more and more people getting in there every week and more people viewing, and I'm sure I probably might have an idea who some of that crowd is, given the recent controversy that I've covered on the show. I had Phil Leach on the show last week, which was, again, another groundbreaking interview and exposed more and more about the ineptness of, and maybe much more at the hands of MUFON headquarters. We asked some pretty hard questions, and I brought those questions up and discussed them last Wednesday with my guest tonight, Dave Scott, on Spaced Out Radio, and Chris Cogswell, who resigned from MUFON. That was a great show. You can go to Spaced Out Radio and listen to it. I highly recommend that. But we have more that will be coming, more bombs that will be dropped over the next few weeks. So definitely hang on to your hat because the best is yet to come. And I guarantee that. I have been receiving email after message and email and phone calls from people who have information about the way they have been treated at the hands of MUFON headquarters and people in high-ranking positions at the organization. So we'll continue the good work. We'll talk a little bit more about that with my guest later this evening, but I want to introduce now Dave Scott. If you haven't listened to Spaced Out Radio, you definitely need to do that. It's a great show. There are two important interviews I want to direct you to on Spaced Out Radio. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Dave is the creator and host of Spaced Out Radio Monday through Friday nights. He's a former radio journalist. He graduated with a diploma in broadcast communications from one of Canada's top broadcasting schools in '98. He spent 10 years in radio before leaving sports to pursue a path of high strangeness. I have spent time talking with Dave and know that he has, like myself, had very profound experiences that have pushed him down this path. I look forward to having you on, Dave. I mean, and you did your hair, so we've got your lovely gray locks, and I'm so happy you did it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that. Well, let me tell you something, because a lot of people ask me, what the hell are you doing with your hair? And why is it such a topic? I always had desk jobs, office jobs throughout my professional career. And when I decided to turn to Spaced Out Radio to do it full time, I'd never grown my hair before. And my mother is a cancer survivor, so I've always wanted to donate my hair. So that's the reason why I'm actually growing it. And now I'm actually getting used to it. And my listeners won't let me cut it. So I'm in this big time conundrum with it. But that's okay. It's a good conundrum to have.
You know what? That's really cool. I like that. And you've got a great head of hair. So that's awesome. And I'm sorry to hear about your mother, but I'm glad that she's doing better.
Oh yeah, she's about 6 or 7 years clear now, so we're well in the good zone.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I have to say that I've been really learning more about you and listening to your shows, and you have done very important interviews that people need to be aware of. There was one with Tom Whitmore, who was on the MUFON board of directors. That is very, very insightful, as well as an interview with Chase Koletsky. And when we get into the good stuff in the second hour, we'll talk about that. But I wanted to learn more about you because your life and your experiences have been so fascinating. So tell us first about what you've accomplished in broadcasting, and then we'll get into where the paranormal kind of took hold of your life and your career.
Well, I really didn't have anything to do with the paranormal up until my own experiences started. Now, I did get my diploma from one of Canada's top broadcasting schools in Western Canada, British Columbia Institute of Technology in 1998, only because I wanted to be a sports reporter. I wanted to work in hockey, and go figure, so cliche for a Canadian, right? But nonetheless, I wanted to try and work my way into working in professional sports. And I ended up spending 10 years in radio, and I went through a very, very nasty divorce in 2007 through 2010. And it really just killed me. And when you're in radio, for a lot of people, whether you work in a major market, Tina would understand this, being a radio guru that she is, there are times in radio where you have to choose whether or not to put gas in your tank or to feed your children. That's how you're treated in radio. It is such a terrible thing because it's such a great art form and a great medium, probably the best medium out there, I believe. And I made a decision in 2007 to leave radio and put my dreams of being or working in professional sports, namely hockey, on the back burner, and decided that I wanted to get into the financing industry because I had a couple friends in that. They were doing very, very well. So that's what I did. I lived a very nice, happily boring life. I was making good money in my life. I had everything that I wanted in life. And then everything changed on December 13th, 2011 at exactly 7:45 p.m. And it was such a profound experience that I had that eventually it culminated with the start of Spaced Out Radio on November 30th, 2014, when we launched. And this is what I've pretty much done since, because as a journalist, and one of the only true journalists in this entire paranormal genre, there is a lot of questions that I have, a lot of things that I can't explain. And I know I'm not alone on that. And that's why I decided to start up the show, because I figured if I had those questions, I knew through broadcasting that I had the ability to talk and ask those questions publicly. A lot of people don't have that strength or that desire to do that. The microphone is fearful for a lot of people. However, I knew I had the ability to do that. So I naively started it, because up here in Canada, when I left radio, I left radio. I never got into the digital side, did not understand the digital side, had no idea it even existed. The only thing I ever listened to up here was Coast to Coast AM, and that was it. And this entire genre, when I entered it, I had no clue it was that big. I had no clue there were that many radio shows. If I had known, I probably would not have started it. But here we are in year number 5, and now we're at the point where, well, let's just see where it goes.
Well, and it is important to have professional people, with a background like yourself in this. It's always interesting to see how many little podcasts are popping up, and I think it's more power to people who are willing to dedicate their time and their money and try to share their experiences and make this topic more accessible for all of us. But I really appreciate you and the very thoughtful questions that you put forth. You research your topic. You understand how to ask the hard questions, and you hold people accountable, which is important. And it's a difficult thing to do sometimes.
Well, you know what? That's actually a good point, because the one thing, and it's funny, I've had this conversation with numerous people, including yourself, over the last few weeks. The one thing that is very much lacking in the field of paranormal is actual journalism. We have a lot of opinion. We have a lot of conjecture that isn't putting down what anybody else is doing. It's not at all. But what it is doing is understanding the fact that, in layman's terms, we do not have enough journalists, whether they're newspaper or online journalists or radio, true radio people, or television journalists. We don't have enough of them covering this field. And it's sad. I mean, there can't only be a couple of people doing it. There has to be more. And I wish that it would come out that there would be a little bit more people taking this seriously, because when we are left to opinion on everything, that's where we are falling short in a lot of these great programs that are out there, along with the fact that we have a lot of issues with people who are trying to sell opinion as journalism, opinion as scientific fact, opinion as everything else is just meaningless if it doesn't suit or match their diatribe. And that's dangerous. And that's what you get in a fledgling community, which is, yes, we're 15, 20 years now into the internet age and the World Wide Web, but people still haven't learned how to communicate, especially with the power of social media. It's dangerous. And what I try and do when I do the show is I try and bring that referee. I'm a referee, whether it's a referee in football or hockey or an umpire in baseball. Their job is to call it down the middle. I try not to choose sides because that's not my job. My job is to ask the questions. My job is to counter something that doesn't sound right. My job is to try and bring both sides of the equation to the table and let the audience decide. The audience is going to be the judge, jury, and executioner. That's their job. It's my job as a host, and I think if more hosts found this and did this, we would get somewhere, because right now we're asking good questions as an entire field, but we're not asking a lot of the right questions. We're asking a lot of opinion right now, and that's dangerous.
It's especially dangerous when a lot of the opinions being shared are delusional. I just had to throw that in there.
Well, and you know what? It is. I mean, it doesn't matter which community it is. And let's face it. I mean, you look at the Bigfoot community, you look at the paranormal, the ghost community, you look at the UFO community, they're all the same. You have a bunch of opinion out there. And it's great. People have to have opinion. Their research gives them that opinion. But when you are using that opinion to say this is the way it is, and this is the only way it can be because this is what I've studied, it is something that is dangerous, because you're not there to influence people. You're there to tell what your research shows. And especially now in the days and ages of podcasting and YouTube channels popping up left, right, and everywhere, where everyone and their dog now has one, all you're doing is expressing your opinion, because that's all you have. Very few people who haven't been trained as journalists can actually call it down the middle, ask the tough questions without being a jerk about it. And it is an art form. That's why when you look at George Knapp, the majority of people out there respect the living daylights out of Mr. Knapp because he tries to call it down the middle. He's been an investigative journalist for so long. Instead, we have people who think, I have an opinion. I know what my research has done. I know what I've solved. That has to be it. That's the only way it has to be it. That's my conclusion. Well, all you're doing is demanding the audience to believe you and nobody else. So I try to be the referee. It's tough. Sometimes I do enact my own opinion. I will state that it is my opinion, and sometimes use the word allegedly, and go from there.
And that's good. Now, I want to just throw in there that, with things that I've been researching, and now that I've got this beautiful archive that I'm adding to, thanks to, and I want to just give a shout out to Daniel Snow for sending me some great things to add to the archive. But looking back historically, this field has been manipulated, on purpose by either religious groups or by political groups, the intel community. I mean, that there's been, we have to be really, really cautious of this. And now, today, I see different factions that are behind the scenes getting these mouthpieces to come out and speak, and people are falling into the same traps. And that's a really dangerous thing. People need to understand. And luckily, most of my guests or my listeners are intelligent enough to do that. But that what you see on YouTube, what you hear on the lecture circuit is oftentimes manipulated and not for the greater good.
You know what? It is. And I think if you look at a group like MUFON, I have questions about that. If you look at To the Stars Academy, I got questions about them. I like to come at things from a completely different angle. And the angle that I have is media, because that's what I know. Yes, I'm an experiencer. Yes, I've seen extraterrestrials. Yes, I've seen Bigfoot. Yes, I've been face to face with ghosts and UFOs. And I know what the experience is like. I don't need to describe the experience, but what I do want is questions answered. And I don't know the political side of things. I can only assume. I don't know what is happening behind the scenes. I can only report on what I see. And that's what I try and do, is I can look at things from a media standpoint. The most dangerous part that I see happening, whether it's MUFON or whether it is the To the Stars Academy, is the way they are trying to control the media message. Whether that's information getting out, like Philip Leach, or whether that is denying the fact that Robert Bigelow bought into MUFON back in 2008. That was denied a year ago by Roger Marsh when one of my listeners asked about it. And it was obviously proven wrong.
And is that in an interview? Do you have and I'm sorry to sidetrack you, but I mean, is there a place that we can post that, or so people can see that statement by Roger Marsh?
My news director, Gail Shirk, has it.
Okay.
She has it. And believe it or not, I will in good faith state that Gail was a listener when she sent that email to Roger Marsh. And now she has joined our team as our fantastic and intrepid news director, going after stories. And she has still has a copy of that email from Roger Marsh. So yeah, we're a public medium. I have no problem releasing it. No problem whatsoever. But the idea behind it, as we continue on here, like with To the Stars Academy, I look at the way as a medium, not as a psychic medium, but as a part of the medium, how they're controlling the narrative of UFOs. And for the majority of people out there who do not understand how dangerous that is, it is something that everybody should be paying attention to. Because you know what? Luis Elizondo, Tom DeLonge, Hal Puthoff, whoever it is, Jim Semivan, for 99% of us in the alternative media, we have been denied any sort of questioning of the To the Stars Academy members. However, Coast to Coast calls up, boom, they're on. Leslie Keane calls up, boom, they're on. Tucker Carlson or Anderson Cooper call up, boom, they're on. Why are you controlling the media? Why are you controlling the message? To me, that's an immediate red flag. What are you trying to hold back from the public? What is it you are hiding that you are trying to keep away from the people who are actually seeing these objects in the skies or experiencing some sort of contact or abduction? Why the secrets?
Well, and then that goes back to, the question that I've been obsessed about lately is, why the secrets with MUFON, especially because they're a nonprofit who is benefiting mankind by using people, having them pay to collect data, and then hiding data and discrediting the subject.
Well, I mean, that's where the dangerous part is. See, they being To the Stars and even MUFON to an extent, have played the media perfectly. It has been pitch perfect. You know why? The media mainstream made it simple. They made it simple by not taking the subject of UFOs seriously for the last 30 years, 40 years. They have continuously berated and belittled UFO people. The average journalist, if you go and ask them, and I know this from working in newsrooms, all right, the average newsie believes that the average UFO person, witness, investigator, is somebody who has a very, very low standard of education. They have a very low standard of IQ. They have a minimum wage type job, probably no dental plan. That's what they think of people like us. They don't see the Stanton Friedmans, the Chris Cogswells, the Grant Camerons, the Linda Moulton Howes, the people who have gone to university to study this topic and the importance of that. They don't see that. And that's what's dangerous.
Well, I mean, it is interesting to know that Linda, from my understanding, was on Bigelow's payroll.
Well, I mean, you got to go back. And what a lot of people haven't done is they haven't gone back and looked at the history of everything. All right. Coast to Coast AM, everybody knows Art Bell started Coast to Coast. But what people do not know is that previous to the incarnation of Coast to Coast AM, George Knapp, Art Bell, and Linda Moulton Howe got together with a gentleman named Robert Bigelow to start a radio show called Area 2000 to talk about these topics. Bigelow ended up pulling out after like 8-9 months because he didn't feel there was enough quality guests and researchers at that time to continue with the show. Art Bell then went back to radio and eventually started morphing his radio show into Coast to Coast AM with the weird, strange topics of ghosts and UFOs and everything like that, and realized that every time he had one of those topics, he saw a major rating spike. And that's how Coast to Coast was created.
Wow.
Back in the early 90s, right? So yes, Linda Moulton Howe, George Knapp, Art Bell, they all teamed up with Bob Bigelow at one point. That's how interesting it is. Most people don't realize it.
Oh, that is interesting. I would love to listen to some of those shows. And we're going to get ready to take our first break for the evening. Make sure you get in there and ask questions in chat. I see more and more people. I want to say hello to Benjamin Hyde and congratulate Bruce Cornett on his speaking engagement. I'm Erica Lukes here with Dave Scott, and you can go to spacedoutradio.com to listen to some of his incredible interviews. I recommend it. Grab a glass of wine, grab some popcorn, stick around, because we're going to have some really exciting conversations coming up when we get back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here, inviting you to join me at UFO MegaCon, a new 7-day and 8-night immersion event from the original producers of the world's largest and longest UFO conferences in recent history. There will be 50 speakers, UFO military witness whistleblowers, award-winning filmmakers, and special guests discussing all things UFO, alien, and disclosure. UFO MegaCon will premiere never-heard-before speakers bringing you new and amazing information. There will be experiencer group Skywatch's musical entertainment and even a game show with George Norrie. Join me at UFO MegaCon March 24th through 30th in Laughlin, Nevada. Truly the one and only conference you need to attend this year. Check it out at UFOMegacon.com. That's UFOMegacon.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code Radio10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
Are you ready to go?
Turn your radio.
It's showtime!
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Break this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I'm always happy to be here on KCOR. I want to give a big thanks to my producer, Tina Marie, who always keeps me in line and keeps the show operating smoothly. I want to give a shout out to all my friends, Doug Down Under, Gabe, JC, Jeff, Joe, all of you, Lib, Northern UFO, Susan, Ella. I just am really appreciative of you always being here and keeping track of what's happening. Not only that, but also spreading information out about the show. I am doing this every week and putting a lot of research and personal time into this because I really believe this is the most important subject I will ever address in my life. And I know that I have a very thoughtful and respectful crowd. So thank you very much for being here. I want to also mention that in my hot little hands, I have American Cosmic, which is a beautiful book, UFOs, Religion, Technology. It is just out from Diana Pasulka. And people like Jacques Vallée have written testimony about the book. It is really important. If you don't know about Diana Pasulka, she is a professor of religious studies at the University of North Carolina and also the chair of the Department of Philosophy and Religion. She has had incredible experiences, and this is a book I would highly recommend. I look forward to having her on the show. She is a special woman. in the field. My hat is off to her. So I am here tonight with Dave Scott. I was on his incredible radio show last Wednesday night, Spaced Out Radio. You can go to spacedoutradio.com. Dave is the creator and host of the radio show that is on Monday through Friday nights. He's a radio journalist with a degree in broadcast communications, but he had personal experiences that changed his life and really pushed him in the same direction that all of us are going, wanting answers, wanting to figure out who is truly genuine in the topic and do the best that he can for the subject. Before we went to break, we were talking about MUFON, about Robert Bigelow, and then the last thing he was mentioning was the Coast to Coast and Robert Bigelow, Linda Moulton Howe, and that. And Dave, are those archives available?
Yeah, I mean, the information, I don't know if they are. I really don't. I mean, this is way pre-internet. So I'm honestly not sure. I have, through my own sources, got that confirmed that was true, that they did do that show, and it didn't last very long. So who knows? Maybe the station is defunct and they held the archives. I don't know. Not everything shows up on the internet.
You ain't kidding about that. And then stuff shows up on the internet. You're not really sure what. Yeah. Anyway, but that's interesting, and I've never heard that before. So thank you for getting that information out. I appreciate
no worries.
That. And so I want to ask you, because and you feel free to tell me you don't want to share this, but when you're mentioning that you had a specific experience that really pushed you into this, would you feel comfortable elaborating on that?
Sure. I want to give a quick shout out to a good buddy of mine. He's in the KCOR chat room right now, Mr. Bart L., Mr. Bart Bowie, because he is, they've become a real big supporter in his chat group for Spaced Out Radio, and I just really want to appreciate that, and all our listeners who have joined us listening into KCOR and your show as well, because they always like to pay attention to what I'm doing. So big shout out to everybody there. But in regards to, I'm sorry, I forgot your question on that. I apologize.
No, I want to say that. I mean, I'm happy to have him here tonight too. That's really awesome. Thanks to Amy, I've been keeping track of him, and I love it. It's really awesome. So how did when you had your first experience with this, what happened?
Oh, yes. 11 at 7:45 p.m. I saw the angel of death in my mother's eyes. So to preface that, what happened there was we were holding a family early Christmas dinner for my daughter, who is going away with my ex-wife's parents over Christmas and New Year's on a Caribbean cruise. And so we decided, because she was leaving a day and a half later, that we would have my side of the family have a Christmas for her, so that way she didn't miss out on a Christmas dinner and presents and spending time with the family over the holidays. And that meant a lot to her to do that. We did a big turkey dinner. We had everybody over. It was just a fantastic night. Then at about 7:45 p.m., my parents announced that they were leaving because, heaven forbid, if you got to sacrifice time with Dancing of the Stars on television over spending time with family. So they were deciding they were going to book it. And I was cleaning up the dining room and the living room of plates and cups and everything from dinner. And my mother was in the kitchen with everybody else. My kitchen kind of connected to our television area where all the kids were, and our television had a Vancouver Canucks hockey game on. They were playing the Columbus Blue Jackets. I've just recently went and figured that one out. Anyhow, not that that's important, but I went into the kitchen after my mother had decided, because I wanted to go give my mom a hug and a kiss goodbye and thank her for the night. And I stepped across the threshold from my dining room through the doorway to my kitchen. And I realized in that step, and you got to realize this whole thing lasts about 3 seconds. I realized that the television is silent. No one is moving. And I look into my mom's eyes, and my mother has these big, beautiful eyes, blue eyes. And her eyes are jet black with her pupils now white, staring back at me. I immediately kind of tilted my head to the right, and I was like, am I seeing what I think I am seeing? And all of a sudden, my mother kind of pulled her head back and had a look of shock on her face, like, oh, you see me. And I immediately got sick to my stomach and wanted to burst out crying because I knew I was staring into the eyes of the angel of death. And all of a sudden, my mother shook her head. Sound goes back on the television. Everybody's chatting away. Again, my mother comes in and gives me a hug and a kiss and just walks away like nothing happened. 3 seconds changed my entire life and my entire path. 3 seconds. So later on that night, after everybody had left, I sat down with my beautiful wife, Mrs. SOR, and she is on one couch, I'm on the other couch, and she lights a white candle in between us on the table, and she goes, why don't you just relax and tell me what you saw? I don't really remember the next 38 minutes, but from what I've gathered, I actually channeled the angel of death. Now, previous to this, I have to admit that the only thing I knew about channeling previous to this was the fact that you would have a remote control for your television in your hand and you'd be flicking through the channels very fast. That was my definition of channeling. And I had no idea what it was like to have a spirit come into your body and have you communicate or have it communicate through you. And the angel of death, through me, was answering questions of my wife. And she was asking, who are you? Why are you here? You know, questions like that. And what I do remember him saying, and this is the only parts that I can recall, is he stated that I was not supposed to see him, but because I did, he felt he owed me an explanation. He had stated many a times that my mother was indeed still ill from the chemotherapy and the radiation that she had gone over. Because what had happened, and this sounds absolutely horrible, but I have to admit this because it's a huge part of the story on how things got going. My mother became addicted to the sympathy. And we as a family got sick and tired of, you know, my mom would pick up the phone and she'd be like, hello? And we'd be like, hey, Mom, it's me. And she'd be like, oh, I'm so sick. The pain. Literally, that's what it was like. And after months and months, and then it turned into years of hearing this, we were like rolling our eyes like, get over it, lady. Like, how callous is that? Well, the angel of death in the channeling session told me that my mother indeed was sick. And that if we did not, as a family, start treating my mother with more love and respect for what she was going through, that he was going to take her home. He did not say heaven. He did not say hell. All he said was that he was going to take her home. So we then asked, how do we keep my mom around? And he said, show her love. Talk to the family. Get them on board. Mother needs more love if you want to keep her here. Otherwise, I'm going to take her home. Well, this is in 2011. We're now in 2019. My mother is still alive because I followed that game plan. When the angel of death talks, you follow that game plan. You have no choice. So that was the beginning of it. And then everything just steamrolled from there. All of a sudden, I started getting or having intuition happen. I started having things popping into my head that I would ask friends about, and they'd be like, how do you know that? And I'd be like, I don't know. So that's kind of what was going on.
I mean, and that must have been just so, I mean, I can't imagine you going through that. And that is, it's brave of you to admit, you know, publicly that your mom got into that mode. I think a lot of people do when they have things like that. But for you, it sounds like from our personal conversations, when you had that experience, then that turned on a switch in you, and then you became, I mean, just so.
Take that up, Sue.
Oh, cute.
Sorry.
No. I know we've all got We've all got family. But I mean, that turns something on in you. And then as a result, you had more and more profound experiences and different types of communication with whatever this is, or many different things. I mean, tell us a little bit more about some of your experiences.
Well, from there, as I continued on, I met a gentleman named Pascal who he's this behemoth of a man. He's about 6'4", 6'5", about 340 pounds. His hands are the size of polar bear paws. And he literally had me going and said, and he's a very spiritual guy. And I met him because my wife went to his meditations and everything like this. And I was recommended by another friend that I talk to him about my experiences that started happening, because all of a sudden everything just happened, like everything paranormal. There was ghosts around. My house was never haunted. There was ghosts around. And like I said, the intuition was kicking in. So as I was going through this, and going through this entire process, I meet Pascal, and he says, "How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?" And I said, "Let's just do it. Let's go as far as we need to go." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "You realize it's going to be a rocky journey?" I said, "What the hell? I have to see where this goes." And it was rocky for a couple years. He took time every couple of weeks to meet with me, and we'd go over some things. We'd practice the channeling sessions, and we'd talk to guides, and we would try to talk to spirit. And, we never went on paranormal investigations. We didn't have to. The spirits were coming to us. And, I was really testing my intuition and everything along those lines. And then all of a sudden in 2013, Pascal says to me, "Dave, you and I need to talk." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "I know you don't like UFOs, but my guides are telling me that you need to start thinking about making contact with extraterrestrials." And I was like, "Nope, I saw a fire in the sky, saw what happened to Travis Walton. No way. That's based on a true story. And there is no way old Davey is going down that road." And up until that point, my entire UFO experience, I had seen one UFO. And I had, in 1999, started reading the book Communion. And I got to a point, my daughter was born in 1999. And I that's the only book I have never finished, because I got to the point where Whitley Strieber had been, in one of the chapters, stated that he was up on a craft and he looks to the side of him and his child is on the side, sitting right beside him. And that freaked me out so much after becoming just a new father that I've never opened that book again. So that kind of freaked me out. It really freaked me out. And I said, "Pascal, I am not doing that. I don't want anything to do with ETs." He goes, "Dave, you don't have a choice. They, whether you like it or not, are going to push you there." And all of a sudden I started seeing UFOs. Orbs, triangles, rods in the sky. It was weird. And it got to the point where I would invite friends over and say, "Hey, why don't you come on over? It's a nice spring night. We'll have a beer on the patio and we'll watch a couple UFO or some UFOs fly over." And the next thing you know, there's black triangles sitting over top of my house with witnesses. I don't know how that happened, but it did. I then saw 2 Bigfoot in behind my friend's farm with him. That was kind of impressive. That was very impressive. And then the UFOs just continued. And in 2014, there was a span of about 3-4 weeks where everything just kind of hit the fan. It started off with me being taken into this white room. I knew there was walls. I was researching the living heck out of my UFO experiences, trying to find the black triangle that I saw online or on YouTube, or go to Google Images and looking at the photos, and nothing that I saw looked like the black triangle that I had witnessed. And all of a sudden I till this day, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was I I was actually taken. But I got put in this white room. It was very bright white light. I could not see the walls or the ceiling, even though I knew it was there. And this is where my story gets a little hokey. I understand that, but there's no point in me BSing about it because this is what happened. So all of a sudden, as I'm standing in this white room, this male voice comes in and says, Dave, we no longer want you watching the television shows. We don't want you reading any books. We don't want you watching any movies, researching, going on paranormal groups or forums online, or going on any ghost hunts. However, we give you permission to watch YouTube videos. I said, I'm trying to figure out what is going on, and you're taking everything away. I don't understand what you mean by YouTube videos. And the voice says, the answer is simple. You will be able to tell what is real and what is fake. Now, that happened around March 15th, 2014. March 20th, around there. And then on April 10th, 2014, I showed up at my friend's house where we had seen the Bigfoot in the backyard. They lived on this 10-acre farm. Their neighbors, they only had one neighbor on their street right beside them that had 6.5 acres. And both properties were horseshoed by a forest. So on April 20th, April 10th, 2014, I showed up at my friend's house after work. I got there about 9 o'clock, and I suffer from migraines. And I sat down on the couch, and Jolene, my wife, looks at me, and she's like, are you feeling okay? And I said, no, I got a headache. She's like, well, do you want to go? And I said, no, I'm good. I'm good. Just got here. Let's just have a tea. Let me relax my mind because I had a stressful day at work. And I could feel my migraine growing. However, about within half an hour, I realized it wasn't a migraine, that it was actually shapes pulsating in my head. It started as a square in the front of my head, went to the right side of my head as a triangle in pain that was pulsating, moved over to the left side of my head as a circle. And then when the pain subsided, all of a sudden I got hit with an anxiety attack that I had to go into the back field. So I said to my wife, I said, I need to go in the back right now. I got to go outside right now. And she's like, why? I said, I don't know. Something's calling me. I need to go back there right now. So the good friends that we had at that time, unfortunately, were no longer friends. But the wife was quite intuitive, and the husband was opening up. And she looks at me. I looked at her, and I said, we need to go outside, to my friend's wife. And she looks at her husband and says, Dave is picking up something outside. We all need to go outside. Get your shoes on. And I looked at her and I said, he's not invited. Why would I tell someone they're not invited on their own property? It was strange. So she and I go back there, and we walk about 50 feet behind the house where they have this old horse fence, a big 2x10 type horse fence. I said, out of God's peace, love, and light, you called us outside. Can you please show me where you are? And on my command, after I said, show me where you are, from the neighbor's back field by the forest, the entire tree line in between the two properties lit up like the brightest Christmas tree you'd ever seen. And this is only about 150 yards away from where we are standing. And after about 30 seconds, the lights went off. And you can imagine the expletives that were being used by both of us at that point, because it's excitement and freaking out at the same time. Right after that happened, I said, if you are of alien descent out of God's peace, love, and light, can you please turn your lights back on? Lights come back on. They are wider through the trees. They are brighter. And I see something through the trees. So I move to my right about 10, 15 feet, to try and get a view through the trees. And that's where I saw this vertical standing cylinder. Now, the trees in that area were about 55, 60 feet. And this cylinder went up about halfway. So it was about 20 to 30 feet tall. And it looked like the blue on a police light. So on the police, I got the blue and red, that really dark blue, except a little darker. It was the most beautiful blue I've ever seen. And the white light is emanating all around this blue. And in this blue cylinder, rotating counterclockwise, was this black cloud. And sometimes it would go about halfway up the cylinder and then down. And it was something that blew my mind. I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to quickly speed through it. Lights go off. My friend says to me, "Do you think they're gone?" I said, "I don't know." She goes, "Well, see if they'll light it up one more time." So I said, just so I know I'm not crazy, out of God's peace, love, and light, can you please turn your lights on one final time? Boom, lights come on. They're on for about 30 seconds, and then they turn off. Then they turn on, then they turn off, then they turn on, then they turn off 10 times. Because previous to that, you know how there's a big argument in the UFO community about this strobing or these power-ups that we see in the sky. The people who don't believe in them will say that it is the sun that is reflecting light off satellites, and that's what causes these bright sparks to happen in the sky. Well, we were having those over our house almost nightly, right above our house, not over the neighbors, not everywhere else, right over us. And that confirmed for me in this weird way that what we were seeing weren't these satellites that were flying by, but they were actually power-ups from craft flying over. And it was very, very intriguing. So 5 days later, I meet this young lady named Samantha Mowat. It's now I haven't slept in 5 days. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, not a cloud in the sky, not a child around, because they are all at school. And Samantha sees me pacing around in their house. And she goes, "Dave, you want to go outside and show me where this happened?" I said, "Yeah, I do." She goes, "Okay, not a problem." So her and I walk outside. We walk in the back field, and I show her in the neighbor's property where this craft was. She's very intuitive. She starts picking it up, and we go from there. And then all of a sudden, Samantha says, "Dave, you want to go in the back forest?" And I knew what she meant. And I said, "Sure, what the hell?" And she goes, "We're going to probably see something." I said, "Yep." So her and I walk into the backfield. We walk about 100 yards in, and she stops me and she goes, "I don't want you to panic, but I want you to look that way," pointing north, "and tell me what you see." So I took a deep breath. I'm 40 years old. I shouldn't be panicking over things like this. I turn and I said, "Samantha, what the heck is that?" And I think that's a good place to leave it right before the commercial.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of questions, and I will get to them. This is an amazing interview. I am here with Dave Scott. You can go to spacenetradio.com to listen to his show that airs Monday through Friday nights. The best is yet to come, so stick around.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51. Wait, that doesn't exist. This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of the show. I can't believe the amazing questions that are coming in chat, and I will be getting to all of them. This is an incredible interview. I want to just mention briefly another book that I have in my hand, and if you don't know this book, it's called Project Identification, which is the first scientific field study of UFO phenomena. This was written by Dr. Harley Rutledge, and he was in Piedmont, Missouri. This book was published back in 1981, and he talks about similar types of phenomena that we are reporting today, that Dave has witnessed, that I have witnessed. You can look at reports near Skinwalker Ranch in the Uinta Basin, reports over in Heshdal in Norway, the Yakima Indian Reservation, and you'll hear about cylinders, you'll hear about orbs of light. So there are hot spots, there are people that attract this, and I'm really happy to hear about Dave's experiences tonight. Dave is the host of Spaced Out Radio. You can hear Monday through Friday nights, and you can go to spacedoutradio.com to listen to past archives. I was on last Wednesday. That was a great show. We were talking about my new hero, Phil Leach, who is in chat, who has been exposing MUFON and corrupt practices. But when we left off for break, and everybody is just very intent to hear you finish the story, Dave. You were talking about your experiences, and please continue, because this is incredible.
So Samantha Mowat and I were standing in this forest, and she pointed north, and she goes, I don't want you to be upset or freak out, but basically take a deep breath and tell me what you see. So I took a deep breath. You got to remember, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. All the kids are at school. It's a Wednesday. And all of a sudden I took a deep breath, and I turned and I looked, and I said, Samantha, what the heck is that? Samantha, what the heck is that? But exchange the heck word with something else. All right. And lo and behold, about 200 feet in front of us, standing there, was a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial staring back. It was tall and lean. I did not see arms. I did not see legs. I did see the head and the body. It was creamy coffee color that morphed into a darker brown eventually. And we stood there for about 15 minutes. What I didn't see was the secondary extraterrestrial there that Samantha started telepathically communicating with. And through Samantha, that 5 to 6 foot alien gray, except it wasn't a gray, it was a brown or a tan, said, we're not here to take you. We're not here to harm you. You are more than welcome to come on over and say hello, but we are concerned about the man's health. And that man, of course, is me, because it's only the two of us. And Samantha's like, you want to go over? I said, no. And she goes, well, I'm going to go over. And she starts walking down the path towards them. And I said, Samantha, please do not leave me. I said, I am not going back to that house alone because you got taken. I don't know you. Please do not leave me. Do not put me in this situation, because I wasn't scared of this creature. But internally, when your brain cannot comprehend what your eyes are seeing, you freak out. Internally, you freak out. And I always laugh at these people out there who've never had an experience to say, oh, I'd get my iPhone out and I would start recording or taking pictures. That's how I know a lot of this stuff online is fake, because when you're put in that real situation where you have an extraterrestrial standing 200 feet away from you and you're staring at it and it is staring back at you. My iPhone was in my pocket of my shorts, and it was the last thing I even thought about. I didn't realize my phone was with me until I got back to the house. And it's internally, it screwed me up. It really screwed me up, because this wasn't supposed to be real. And here it is, standing right in front of me. Now, for Samantha, it's all in a day's work. That's why she, in my opinion, is the best kept secret in ufology. I would put her up against any experiencer out there. She's number one in my books. Number one. And I cannot speak highly enough of her. And I'm blessed to still be able to call her a friend. But that was the start. That was everything. And a few months later, because of questions like that, we ended up starting Spaced Out Radio.
Wow. I know all of my listeners are sitting there like I am. I mean, that's incredible. And thank you for being open about those experiences. And it is important that you hit on the fact that people, when you're faced with something that you can't wrap your brain around, you don't always have the thought of, hey, let's get out a camera. And even if you do get out a camera, lots of times, especially if it's in the evening, you're going to get a little blurb, a little dot of light. And even if you had, we're taking photos, there would be somebody somewhere that would try to debunk it. So at the end of the day, what does it mean unless you have instrumentation there where you're collecting data constantly? So I don't know. But what an incredible experience. And I have to talk to her. I will reach out to her.
She will actually be one of the speakers at UFO MegaCon in a few weeks down in Laughlin, Nevada. She'll be speaking on the Sunday night, the Sunday afternoon.
I wish I could get out there. That would be amazing. And so, you have these experiences. You do the show. You start the show, and then, at what point when you get into this, and you're maybe like me when I got into this, I turned to the community for help with some of the things that I had experienced, and I thought that there was a cohesive community, being the delusional fool I was at that point, and thought that people were doing this for the greater good, and they absolutely weren't. But at what point did you start to realize that this field was corrupt?
Oh, that wasn't until a couple of years into this when I started getting frustrated. A couple of years into the whole radio scene. Like I said, I was very naive getting into this. I had no expectations. Everybody knew that Coast to Coast was the granddaddy, the grand poobah of everything that we do. And it probably wasn't until I started, having people question my integrity on my own responses that I started getting a little bit frustrated and seeing a lot of opinion. It was opinion and seeing the self-titlement of people, the demonologists, the investigative journalists, the scientists. That's what was really, really bothering me. And you just learn to pick up on the BS and the political side of everything. It doesn't really faze me because I've never been a part of MUFON. I've never been a part of any group whatsoever ever since that meeting I had in that white room with whoever they are. And ever since then, I just kind of do my job. That's where, my opinion of it doesn't matter. I'm not going to change it. The only thing I can do is I have a microphone and I have a voice to do my job to call it out, which is what we did the other night, which is what I did with Tom Whitmore on the air back in January, which is what I did with Chase Klutsky last year, right? Is let's just talk about it. Talking doesn't hurt. Give people answers. That's all we want, answers. That's our job. So I don't have that big frustration because I've never been involved, but I do know a lot of people and have a lot of friends who have. And in the end, all I can do is ask questions. My opinion of it doesn't matter.
And then that is hard. It is hard sometimes when you have your own personal experiences, and you get into this. It's hard not to interject with your own belief systems. And that's, I know for me what my own experience has meant to me. I won't try to say, if you've had this experience, I want you to conform to my belief system on a personal experience.
You know what? I'll take Bigfoot. Let me tell you my Bigfoot story, because when I saw two Bigfoot, where I live in British Columbia, a lot of First Nations believe that Bigfoot is a shapeshifter or an interdimensional type being. A few days after we saw Bigfoot, there were four of us doing a perimeter walk on my friend's property because we saw him in that same forest where I saw the extraterrestrial. Okay. And yeah, there was a lot of woo that was happening on that property. A lot of woo. And we were doing a perimeter walk because there was always some sort of ghost happening there. We had seen this one ghost of a gentleman who was carrying an old lamp, like a torch lamp, swinging it around as he walked the property. We saw him a number of times. Well, a few days after this Bigfoot incident, it felt like we were being followed around the property. And the four of us, we were kind of walking towards the front of the house. And behind the house, they had this old cherry tree that stood about 20, 30 feet high. Big black cherry tree. And I turned to look, and that cherry tree caught my eye. And there was this pixelation there. And only me and one other person in our group of four could see the pixelation, much like when they pixelate someone's face on TV to protect their identity. That's what it looked like. And it was from the ground to about 8 to 10 feet up. And we continued our walk. And when we got to the front of the house, we got roared at. So to me, with seeing the Bigfoot a few days previous to that, then hearing the roar, seeing the pixelation, then hearing the roar, that really made me believe that there was a lot of Bigfoot truth to what the First Nations in our area said about the creature or whatever it was. So when I get into this field, and then you get people out there who are saying Bigfoot is a Gigantopithecus, or it's a North American great ape, or it's some monster that hasn't been discovered yet. All right. Well, what about First Nations? No, I don't buy that BS. There's no way it's interdimensional. Nothing is that way. I don't buy that. Okay. So in one word, you're telling me what you think it is because you claim that you're doing scientific investigation. Well, if you break down science, and I've done this with Chris Cogswell, and he agrees with me on this. Okay. Science is, to break it down for us who are not scientists, it is the proof or disproof of every theory. So what these guys are doing is they are taking opinion because they don't believe that this creature is interdimensional or a shapeshifter or whatever it could be, supernatural ability. Okay, because they don't believe that, they're refusing to investigate that. So please tell me what the science is they are conducting. There is none. There is absolutely zero science. They're conducting opinion research, not scientific research. Right. And that happens all over the community. And that's, to me, the reason why people laugh at us. All of us in this field is because this is where opinion becomes very dangerous.
Absolutely. And it is important that we kind of go into this realm, and I've got to ask a few questions first. But did you ever write down your experiences?
Coincidentally, I am writing a book on them right now.
Right.
Yes. So I'm almost done chapter 1, which is the story about the angel of death in my mother's eyes. And then we're just going to roll with it from there.
That is awesome. And I do the same thing. I mean, I've kept a journal my entire life and keep very detailed notes about things that happen, because you look back, 5 years, I look back 5 years ago and I see things, and then I can finally make sense of some of the patterns that have taken place in my life. It's been a trip. But do you feel that you've had any negative experiences? I mean, the angel of death, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That was profound. But tell us about some of the negative things.
I've had one extraterrestrial experience where I have been taken, and I don't talk about it. I don't talk about it at all. I do talk about it. There are details that I leave out because it freaks me out too much. But let's just say at the end of that scenario, I saw a little gray dude, a species of gray that I've never seen before. And he had his head kind of protruding out from his neck, which was protruding out from his body. And as he walked away from me while I was pinned down, I saw a little toddler, like a 12-month-old toddler that's doing the duck walk, trying to learn how to walk, following behind him. And what I remember about that little toddler was the diaper, because the diaper was glowing luminescent green with black and luminescent red veins running through it. That freaked me out. I woke up the first time I know I had been taken. I woke up on the table while these 3 little gray beings were cutting open the back of my head to implant me. No, just to answer any questions that come up. No, I've never been tested for an implant. I already know it's there because every time I talk about this story, that implanted area where they went in actually starts to vibrate in the back of my head. It's the weirdest thing. So yes, I do know that I am implanted and that I woke up on the table while they were doing that. So there's a couple of times where I have been scared. Ghost-wise, never been scared. Never been scared.
And so
you get the little jumpy parts like the type thing, but never freaked out. No.
So have you had any electrical interference? I mean, computers, light bulbs, typical things.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I mean, the odd time you drive by a street lamp and it goes out, right? I'm not sure I buy into that. That's where my little piece of skepticism comes in. I've never had any poltergeist activity. I would love to see that. Okay. I would love to, put my a glass on the counter and watch it slide across the counter. That would make me actually kind of excited. I would like to see that. Now, a lot of people will be like, no, don't ask for that. That's bad. That's bad. But I just would, I'd like to see it. There's a few things that I would like to experience. All right. I mean, one of the coolest experiences I had was on April 20th, 2015. I was doing a show, and about 17 minutes into the show, I saw something move out the window of my studio, which was at the front of my house at that time, at my old house. And from there, I thought there was somebody coming over, and I'm like, oh God, there's going to be somebody coming over and my dogs are going to start barking. And when the little dog starts barking, that's a good 20 minutes of barking right there. She doesn't shut up, but the dogs never started barking. So my guest starts speaking, a gentleman named Harvey Kraft. We were talking Buddha of all topics. I put my microphone on mute. I swivel my chair to look out the window, which is only about 3-4 feet away from me. And at the far end of the window, there is an alien gray standing there staring back at me. And that's how, if you listen to my show, Spaced Out Radio, how the legend of Carl began. Now, Carl is a mascot of ours. He's our mascot. But at the time, to see this large-headed gray with giant big black eyes, a small slit for the mouth, he had that skeleton-style face with the bones kind of surrounding the eyes and the cheekbones and very tight jaw. Oh, yeah, I could see Carl right now in my head as I think about him. But he needed a human name, so that's what we gave him, Carl.
I like Carl. That works. And you said that, and that actually just brought to my mind an experience that I had. We were living in a haunted house, a really haunted house, about 20 years ago, and we were having a Halloween party, and my friends were filming. We had a cold porch, and they were out there taking videos. And interestingly enough, my friend was dressed like Reagan from The Exorcist, and she looked she was very frightening, but her husband was filming her, and when they played the video back, right behind her, there was a face that the way you describe Carl sounds exactly like what they filmed.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for jogging that memory.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I'm looking at the chat room. There's a ton of questions here.
There are a ton of questions, and I mean, I have to say that Bart is asking some incredible questions, and I want to get to those at the end of the show. You want to talk about a little bit about the gnomes, and we've got a few minutes before break, and I would like to talk a little bit about MUFON and go into some of this and some of the things that you have specifically uncovered with Tom Whitmore, with Chase Kletzky, and some of the dysfunction there, because this is a really, for me, for you, for Phil, for the people, for Ken, for people that have had experiences with MUFON and are trying to get answers, or have just had experiences and want a credible organization to go to. MUFON is really questionable. And so with regard to the Tom Whitmore interview, what were some of the things that struck you as profound?
One of the things was the fact that Executive Director Jan Harzan has a lot of control in what happens. One of the things that blew me away was that the board was unaware that at that time, that when Harzan and Luis Elizondo appeared on Coast to Coast AM, I believe it was July 4th or 5th of 2018, that they were actually talking on that show about how they've been working together. And according to Whitmore, nobody had known that they actually were working together. And said that was a decision of Jan's and Jan's alone. And I said, well, Tom, you ran a multi-million-dollar financial firm. I said, if you did something like that without your board knowing, and you congregated with another company, would they not have issue with that? And, he stumbled through that answer. That was probably the most profound part of that entire questioning that I asked, was that part right there, because that didn't make sense to me. Here you have a 501c3 in the United States, which is MUFON, teaming up with a company that is for-profit, private company that has shares and investors. What do they need each other for? Why is MUFON teaming up with a bunch of spooks? That's a big question that needs to be asked. Did they not learn anything from the Robert Bigelow fiasco that caused? He also tried to state, and I don't agree with this is my opinion, because you're asking my opinion. He also tried to state that the John Carpenter affair was a private deal and didn't include MUFON. Well, Carpenter was doing investigations and hypnotherapy for MUFON when he took the bribe from, or the deal, I shouldn't call it a bribe, that's wrong, when he allegedly took the deal with Bigelow to send him the big cases of ET contact, people who were flying the ships, things like that. That's wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, and the John Carpenter affair is important to look into, and you can Google that and find a really great website, and I will get that and post that, where you've got specific documents from Elaine Douglas, from the Carpenter affair, from looking into MUFON's tax records, from some pretty important questions about that. And I wanted to say with the Luis Elizondo and all of this, we've got to talk about this with regard to Chase Kletzky, but we're going to take a break. We've got much, much more to cover. Stick around. Go to UFOclassified.com to learn more about the show and my research. Go to Spaced Out Radio to listen to Dave. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
You love them enough to do anything for them.
Dad, can we make 200 cookies for my bake sale tomorrow?
Let's do this. Including checking NHTSA.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We interrupt this program to annoy you and make things generally irritating.
At the end of the day, we turn the lights down in the KCOR studio.
Oh, sweet.
And crank up the hottest club songs from around the world.
This is the future.
The Grind, mixed by Tina Marie, your Vegas vixen of the high desert.
What about the body? What kind of body? Good body. Nice body.
Every night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific. The best 3 hours of commercial-free music.
New music first.
It's time to stand up and dance your ass off. The Grind, nightly and exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Come on, it's kind of hot.
30 seconds and counting.
Broadcasting to you from another planet, beaming you a world of entertainment.
This is the world-famous KCOR. Now listen live online at KCORradio.com.
I like everything about this station.
When do I listen? Like 24 hours a day.
It's my favorite station. I just love the music. It keeps me going at work.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
Idiots.
A Georgia man was busted for allegedly force-feeding a goat cocaine and whiskey. Do you believe that anybody would do that to an animal?
Well, he's trying to get his date kind of warmed up, isn't he?
Sergio Guzman, 28, horse trainer, was caught on camera holding a little guy's horn while a pal shoved drugs in its nostrils.
What was the point?
Why would you give an animal drugs?
Well, if it was a horse and you wanted to win the race,
but this was a goat.
That's my point. That's why I'm asking why.
Because they're sad, you know.
I guess.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the final segment of UFO Classified. It always pains me so much to say that. You can go to ufoclassified.com to learn more about myself and my research and upcoming guests, which I don't usually post too far in advance because I've had some naughty people trying to hone in on guests. I do have a great guest next week, and you can rest assured that there will be more bombshells coming out about MUFON in the coming weeks. I am here tonight with Dave Scott, who is the creator and host of Spaced Out Radio. You can listen to that Monday through Fridays. Go to spacedoutradio.com. Go back and listen to some of his archives, well, all of his archives, because there are interviews in there where he has very thoughtfully and diligently interviewed guests, and they have gone on record to say things that are important, especially with regard to the topic we're broaching right now, which is MUFON. And we were talking about Tom Whitmore and Jan Harzan.
Yes.
And I mean, so what are your final thoughts on Tom Whitmore, aside from the fact that the MUFON board has just rolled over and given complete control to Jan Harzan?
Well, I think it's dangerous. And, you're asking a personal opinion here. So I just want to clarify that when I'm on my show, I'm usually the one asking for opinion, not giving opinion. I think that with everything that has come out from Philip Leach, Ben Moss quitting, along with people such as Chris Cogswell and others, James Clarkson, who's quit in the past, I think that there is dissension among the ranks, and and I'm not throwing anything out there, but if this continues, it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to go the way it's always gone with MUFON, where people love the title. One thing MUFON has perfected is titling people. People love a title. Everybody wants to be involved because they get a title. And when you have people who need that validation, they're everywhere. You can find them anywhere. Or maybe this will give, after what Phil has brought up, give the people who are loving MUFON but don't like the way it's being run, the ability and the strength to finally say enough is enough. This is not working for us. We need to fix this. And that only comes with communication. Do I think that's going to happen? No, not at all. Not at all. I don't know Jan Harzan. I want to go on the record. I don't know Jan Harzan. I have never spoken to Jan Harzan. He and I don't even think are Facebook friends. Nothing. I'm just looking to confirm that. No, him and I are not Facebook friends. We're not on social media. I've never talked to him. Because of all of these allegations, as I stated on the show with you and Chris Cogswell this past Wednesday, if Jan wants to come on Spaced Out Radio and ask and answer some pointed questions, I will cancel whatever guest I have that night to put him in. I think that this topic is that important. Come answer some questions. I'm going to treat you with respect because I treat all of my guests with respect. I'm not there to beat up or belittle or anybody or do anything like that. But come answer some questions. The public needs to know. Your investigators need to know. And most importantly, the people who are giving you free information need to know what you stand for, what you're all about. Come answer the question. That's a fair statement. I can't make it any more fair than that. Stand in front of it. I'm going to treat you like gold, like I have with every guest that has ever been on my show. I'm not going to throw you to the wolves because I don't believe in that. It's not my job. But I will ask you some tough questions. And he won't. He hasn't returned our request for an interview just yet. And I'm hoping he has a change of heart with that because I would love to interview him. I want to talk to him.
Yes, I think that would be very good. I know that as we have seen with a lot of recent MUFON scandals, Jan doesn't typically take the approach of hitting this head on, and his director of communications is definitely not adept in crisis management. Clearly, Roger Marsh and Chase, the director of investigations, Chase Klutsky, who has come under a lot of fire as of late for not only really putting forth information about her background, which is questionable, but also the way she interacts and allegedly bullies and intimidates those who go against her. And I do believe that there will be more coming to light about that because those are really serious, as we talked about on your show. These are very serious charges. The fact that there have been many people over the years who have specifically sent letters to Jan Harzan asking for support for investigation, to inform him that these abuses are taking place, and the fact that he has done absolutely nothing and the board of directors turns a blind eye. Those are very serious allegations.
Well, it is. And you know what? Here's the thing. A lot of people take MUFON and wrap it up in a big ball. There's a huge difference between the investigators, the state directors, and the board of directors. A huge difference. The people who are investigating, they're doing it because they have the love of the subject. They want to help people. They want to know what's going on, right? But otherwise, the board needs to answer some questions. They do. And it's an old boys club. It is. And that needs to be addressed.
But if you ask Chase, Chase will say, rah, rah, go cheerleaders. This isn't a good old boys club.
But that's fine. That's fine. And I know where you're going with that. Okay. My job with the show isn't so much about outing an organization as it is about caring for the people who are giving that information. How would you feel? Any of your listeners, or you feel, if you found out that your event let's say you have an event that take the movie Signs. You have a farm. You've got aliens in your cornfield. Crop circles popping up. You go back there, you see something, you call in MUFON, they send in their SAT team that doesn't have to report to the public, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Okay, what are you holding back? You're the voice of the people in this, and yet you're holding back information. And then you find out that they used your investigation to make money off of it for television. How good would you feel? I wouldn't feel good. Why are you using my story? Where is my rights to that? But the fine print, which nobody reads, says this may be used for television. Be open with people, right? If you're a MUFON investigator and you're part of this SAT team and nobody seems to know who is on that SAT team, it's all alleged speculation. And you are one of these people who goes out into that alleged cornfield in the movie Signs and comes face to face with an alien, and you start chasing down that alien like in the movie. Why is that not getting to the public? You are the voice of the public, and you're not reporting that? Why? What is holding you back from reporting that? Is it the potential money on television? Potential money on a documentary? Or is there something a little bit more sinister with the fact that there are many who believe that your group has spooks working in it? And that's more important. Is there a private deal? What is going on? Those are the questions that need answering. Those are the questions where Jan has to pull up his big boy pants, and I say that with all due respect, and come face the media. Come answer the questions, because if you're not going to answer the questions, all of this stuff continues. All of it. And that's the issue. I'm there for the people. The bickering and the whatever's happening between Chase and Phil or Jan and everybody or whoever, that doesn't bother me. What about the people and their experiences who are getting screwed over? That's what I care about.
Well, and I have to say that I think Phil has been he has done the right thing. He tried to address this specifically with Jan, specifically with the director of investigations and Steve Hudgens. I mean, and so he saw that he wasn't getting anywhere, and so he decided to put this forward to the public. And as we both know, there are serious allegations about what the organization is doing, and I feel. And I have, after I resigned, I was asked to speak at different chapters all over the country for MUFON, because I care about the people. I had Rob Switek, who is a MUFON board of directors, on my show a couple months ago. I care about the people like you do, like Phil does, in the organization, because they are doing the best that they can. And at the end of the day, they don't deserve leaders like this who are behind their backs calling them crybabies or pigs or different things, or undermining their credibility and not really highlighting how we can utilize science. There's so many questions, and for me, I feel that at the end of the day, MUFON is it really needs to be disbanded. We need to start over. I'm not going to comment on that, but what I will say is this. What Phil Leach did was exactly what he was supposed to do. He saw wrongs that were not being corrected. So what he did was he went public with it and said, this is your group. This is your group that is doing this to you, the public. That's what I took out of it. All right. Phil wasn't about Phil with these letters. When I read each one of those emails, in my opinion, Phil wasn't doing it to say, well, what about Phil? What about Phil? What's in it for Phil? I didn't get that at all. What I got was a person who is saying, guys and girls, we have something great here. We got something incredible here. And we're screwing it up. And these problems that we are having are very easily fixed if we communicate, number one. Number two, we don't hold secrets. And number three, we are open and accountable. Why is John Ventry still involved? And as Tom Whitmore said on my show,
there's a little bit more to that than what we know. And I'm going to take his word at that. All right. I will say that. I'm not going to go on what I know or what I don't know, but I will take Tom's word on that. I will defend Tom Whitmore on that. Okay. We don't know the circumstances. John Ventry has a lot of money. And we got to remember that. But I think Phil was right in the wheelhouse. We got to get out of these. And you know what? Phil kept on saying in those emails, let's talk. And everything seems to be half the time emails. Well, emails, text messages. What happens? You don't get the proper message out. You're hiding things. Get it out in the open. Have a conversation. Right? Have a conversation. And that's all that MUFON needs to do is have a conversation with the public. Go on Coast. Talk about it without Luis Elizondo. Go on Spaced Out Radio or one of the great shows that are on KCOR, because I am a fan of this network. I do want to mention that Tina does an incredible job in putting this all together. All right. Go on Midnight in the Desert with Dave Schrader. Go on John B. Wells. Go on Clyde Lewis. Right? There's a ton of great shows out there. Go talk to someone. Right? Go talk to someone. And they won't.
No, they won't, because and this has, I think, typically been, from what I have gleaned from talking to old timers on the subject and people that used to be state directors and have committed a lot of their time to MUFON. I mean, they're very good at when people learn too much about the organization and the inner workings, they'll discredit them, they'll demean them, they'll push them out of the way and get somebody younger and more naive to get in there and do all the hard work until they can discredit them.
Exactly.
And then find new people to take money. And it's just this cyclical thing that takes place. And it really is just absolutely, it's sickening. It's sad, because we deserve better than this.
Sure. I mean, everybody deserves more. But Erica, this is personal for you because you were a part of MUFON. You have a piece of your heart with MUFON. Phil has a piece of heart with his time. Chris Cogswell, Ben Moss. Okay, numerous people. James Clarkson. There's love of MUFON there because the goal is supposed to be that watchdog for the public, and somewhere that message has got lost. And no matter if it's Jan or Tom or Chase or anybody on that executive board, they cannot defend that they are there for the sake of the public if they have a SAT team, because the SAT team is private. And if you were there from the public, okay, you're giving the public everything. You're letting them know in a press release, Mr. Roger Marsh, that To the Stars Academy is working alongside MUFON. You're letting them know, you're letting the public know that if there is a SAT team out there that has maybe made extraterrestrial contact, you're the voice of the people. You let the public know of your findings. But they're not. They won't. So therefore, they're not the voice of the public. And that has to be accountable. What Phil did, good for him. I stand up and applaud what he did. What people like Chris Cogswell have done, I stand up and applaud. Okay? Not every organization is perfect. Doesn't matter if it's MUFON, doesn't matter if it's Spaced Out Radio, doesn't matter if it's KCOR. No organization is perfect. There is always things that happen behind the scenes that the public will never know, but you keep it there. But if it regards or affects the public, like the SAT team can, there's an issue there. There's a big issue there that needs to be addressed.
And honestly, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking this seriously. And as you mentioned on the show, sometimes we get people that say, "Oh, leave this alone. Why are you harping on this issue?" and all of these things. And yes, okay, great. Yeah. I would like to not talk about it for a week.
Yeah.
I would like to not think about it for a day. But because I care about this subject, I will talk about it until the truth is exposed.
Well, here's the thing, though. Okay, I like MUFON. I want to go on record and state I like MUFON. I have no issue with MUFON whatsoever. Some of the people that I have met through MUFON have become extremely good friends of mine. Extremely good friends. All right. I just want questions answered. If Jan Harzan didn't resign, it doesn't bother me. I just want the interview. I want the questions answered, because if I have questions as an outsider looking in, other people have questions and they deserve to have answers. But you see, this is where the entire community gets the royal shaft. Is there is no media outside of a few of us. There is no watchdog on print. There's no newspaper. There's no television channels, because everybody and their dog is a blogger or a vlogger. All right. And there is no medium to hold them accountable. If what MUFON was doing happened to a professional organization, let's say it happened within Google or Apple or Facebook or Microsoft, this would be across the news. Completely across every news network. Doesn't matter if it's Fox, CNN, Chicago Times, New York Post, LA Times, doesn't matter. It would be everywhere. But because it's UFOs and because it's MUFON, they know they don't have to answer to anybody.
Yes.
And they have figured out that this community has a very short memory, and if they ignore, they will never have to answer the questions, which is why I highly doubt I will ever get Jan Harzan on Spaced Out Radio, as much as I would give him the best interview I possibly could.
And that's exactly it. And both of us have figured out the MUFON two-step, the MUFON shuffle. Keep it quiet, it'll blow away. And this subject, like you said, it's so eloquently, yes. I mean, it's like it is really easy to marginalize this subject, thanks to
and to the reminder to the public. Okay, the reminder of the public is the fact that the investigators and the majority of the state directors are not the issue. They're good people. Okay, like here's an example with Jan. One of my questions that I would love to ask Jan, okay, would be point blank. These state directors who are violating HIPAA laws by getting personal health information of people or looking into criminal background checks, why are they still in position? Why have you not fired them? Simple question. Very simple question. According to Phil, Jan is looking into it. What is there to look into? You fire the people who went above the law. And if you're not going to do it, Jan, you're the boss. You have to be held accountable. If I screw up on Spaced Out Radio and my audience all of a sudden calls me out, I have to answer the question. I have to.
Right.
That's my role as the boss.
Absolutely. And I have to throw in there that there are, there has been sexual harassment. There has been intimidation. There have been people using their husband's security clearance or whatever, their military connections to threaten people's livelihoods. There are, like I mentioned, there should be legal action taken. And I honestly hope that happens. I think it will sooner than later. And it's really important. And I want to thank you very, very much for giving this the serious attention it deserves. You rock, honestly. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. And I could go another 4 or 5 hours with you, because I think we would have a very, very good conversation. And if you don't mind, I do want to remind your audience that on Friday, March 15th, you will be appearing with me on Spaced Out Radio, as I will actually interview you.
I'm so excited
about this. Yeah. So thank you so much. And thank you for Tina for doing the board and everything. Tina, I know I just want to mention, I'm always listening from a distance. You run a very, very good show and a great station. Keep up the fantastic work. It's people like you who are building the positivity in this field and bringing these shows and these topics to light. So keep up the great work, and you too, Erica.
No, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be on the show, and I can't wait to keep listening. I'm so happy I have found you and found a friend who really cares about the subject, who has had personal experiences. Thank you for being open enough to share your experiences. I know everybody in chat was just on fire about that, and I've got a lot more questions to talk with you about. So please go to spacedoutradio.com. Check it out. I love the show. I can't wait to be on. And for all of you, get out there and find good research there with all the negativity and all of the crap going on. If you go to projectheshtalen.org, you look at Project Identification, which is a great book. Look at Marfa, Texas. Look at the Yakima Indian Reservation. There's so many places that have incredible things taking place. This is a subject that deserves the best, and we'll do our best to make sure that all of this nastiness is aired out. Thank you, Dave, for being here. And we did not answer Bart's question about the gnomes.
All right. Quickly, gnomes. My daughter saw a gnome outside her window in the shadows, and it scared the living heck out of us because my landlord at the time had garden gnomes. So I developed a major fear of gnomes, but David Weatherly has since told me that I'm not allowed to have that fear anymore for the sake of retribution. So therefore, I am officially one with the gnomes.
I love it. Thank you. You guys have a good night. Stick around for Willie Miranda, who is up next. Be safe, and we will catch you next week. And rest assured, it'll be a good show.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcast